Welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast. My name is Paul Klingen, and I am your host. I left a career at Amazon in 2018 to help people live healthier lives. Mindful Muscle is the balance between pushing harder to hit your fitness goals while also being able to slow down. We'll talk all things training, nutrition, and recovery, while also highlighting the importance of mindfulness, slowing down, and taking care of mental health and performance. You'll hear from doctors, authors, athletes, coaches, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in the health and wellness space. And you'll hear from me as an athlete, trainer, nutrition, and personal performance coach as I share my thoughts and experiences that are helping my clients and myself get better each and every day. All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast, Competitor's Guide to Mental Health and Mastery. And I'm really looking forward to today's episode because we got some serious mindfulness talk, mental mastery, mental health, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things within my 3 pillars of mindfulness. But before I want to dive into that, I want to talk about the Virtual Wellness Weekend fundraiser for girls on the run at Puget Sound. I'm partnering with a local Seattle fitness group called ULA and Us, Upper Left America, and us being Evis and Christy, some really good friends that I have in the Seattle area. So this is actually going to be part of a virtual meditation that I'm going to be leading and talking about on 5/26. It's a virtual happy hour that you can join. So link's going to be in the show notes for that if you are interested in that. And if you're listening to this after 5/6, obviously all the things I'm about to talk about definitely apply. And it's going to be things that I talk about with my clients when I'm going through their training and nutrition and making sure that all of this works together really cohesively and it's comprehensive, because when you apply the things that I'm about to talk about, it makes everything else so much easier. And so that's why something that I'm really big on when I first broke away from working at Amazon and got into meditation and yoga and all these things that really balanced out who I was as an athlete, they've really helped me progress not only physically but mentally, and also in creating clarity in what I want as a human, which is super cool and something that I'm really happy to be sharing with you guys. So before I do, one other thing. If you get some out of today's episode, I'd appreciate it. 5-star rating and review on iTunes. It helps me go up the charts so that more people can see stuff like this. Not that there's not a lot of good things on the internet or podcasts, but there's also some stuff that is just kind of blah, and this is going to be fire. Seriously, really good, really powerful stuff. And so if it can help someone, I'd appreciate that, and you help me help them through doing that. So 5-star rating and review, leave a little note, tag me, let me know your thoughts, any questions that you have, because I want to dive into that more with you. But without that, we're going to dive right into it. So to give a little bit of a framework, as I've mentioned a lot on this podcast, I grew up an athlete. And I remember in college, we'd always go and look at the game plan or the practice plan. So before practice, you're talking about, all right, here's what we're going to go do. You visualize, hey, here's how the practice is going to look. Here's what we're going to work on. You really have a plan laid out for you. And that's going to be something that you're doing in the future. Then when you're going through and executing it, whether it's a practice, a workout, a run, something that you need to do for your job, right? You're going to be in the present moment in that. In order to execute that at the best level, you need to be really present, and you need to be able to dive deep and get into that flow state. And then afterwards, you're going to reflect. You're going to reflect on how things went, what went well, what didn't go well, what you would do differently next time. And so with that in mind, a couple years ago, I started thinking, all right, really there's 3 ways to look at what we're doing when we're working on mental performance. There's reflection, which is going to be looking back in the past. There's the present moment, which I call grounding, and that's going to ground you and root you into the here and now. And then there is visualization, and that is looking out into the future, whether that is a minute from now, a day from now, a week from now, a year from now, or even 10 years from now. And so before I dive into really practical things that you can do for each of these buckets, I'd also have you consider what happens when you're really bummed or depressed. It's usually because you're looking back on something that happened. You're bummed, you're depressed, you're thinking in the past about something that is bringing you down in the present moment. So a lot of times when our mind is in the past, it's going to be something that's preventing us from being present, from being grounded, from being in the flow. And then when you look at something out in the future, a lot of times we get anxious, we get nervous, and that anxiety is coming from some sort of anticipated good thing, big thing, bad thing, whatever it is that you're anticipating. When that anxiety gets out of control, you're really visualizing something that hasn't really yet happened. And so a lot of times we can get in trouble when we play too far in the past and when we play too far in the future. And so it's always going to be the present moment. The grounding and being really in flow, that is going to help you get out of those states. And it's not to say that these states aren't important, because we're going to talk about that really shortly, but another thing to consider, basically. So the first one I'll dive into is reflection. So you can look at this as you're looking in a mirror, you're looking in a pool of water, you're looking basically at yourself, and you're reflecting. And I'm going to go through an example of how you could do this as someone that is training for maybe like a half marathon, and how I've done it for marathon and half marathons, but I'll also give you some other tools and tricks that you could then apply to work, relationships, definitely a lot of fitness, nutrition, training, and really just hard work and exercise that you'd be doing. But the first one is something I call the evidence. So if you have been doing any sort of training program for a run, there's going to be some evidence that you can definitely do what you want to do on that race day. So this might be a meditation that you would do on race day where you sit and reflect. It could be quiet, could have music going on, you could be laying down, you could be seated, but you're reflecting on all the hard work you've done, all the nights in, all the runs, all the strength training that you've done, how you've ate really healthy for this run, so that when you get on race day, it's not, can I do this? You have evidence in the past of when you have. And it can be really easy to say, oh, there's not enough evidence that I can do this. I haven't really done it before. And that definitely happens. A lot of athletes will get to a championship game and they've never done it before. But you can also look to the evidence of people that have done it in the past and say, wow, is there evidence that if they can do it, I can do it? And so having this sort of reflection and saying all these fears, anxieties that I have about, oh, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't know if I can hit this time. When I ran my marathon under 3 hours, I definitely had to reflect and say, man, I don't know if I can do this. But then I said, all right, I know people who have. I know what their training was like. I followed that training program. I know what they can do athletically. I know I'm made of the similar stuff. I know the mindset that they have. And I believed in that as well. And so you're looking for evidence. And really, it's a practice of positivity, maybe in a way, or a practice of affirmation and saying, all right, I have what I need. Here's the evidence. And then that's going to be something that fires you up. A couple other things I really like within reflection is the 5 whys. This is going to be something that I picked up and really built upon when I was at Amazon. So anytime something bad happened, the managers would say, all right, do the 5 whys. Why did this happen? And initially you might say, oh, we didn't hit this target because of this reason. But then you're supposed to ask why. So a really quick one you could do with nutrition is, I'm not eating how I should. Well, why? Well, I'm just kind of buying trash. Well, why are you buying trash? Well, because I'm working super late and I'm, just running through the convenience store downstairs and just grabbing stuff really quick. Well, why are you working super late? Like, why are you crunched for time? It's like, well, because I'm on my phone all day and not really getting in the work that I need to do. It's like, well, why are you on your phone all day? It's like, well, something I've done for 5 years. Well, why have you been on your phone all day for 5 years? And then it's like, oh, wow, this is maybe the root of the problem that you wouldn't have gotten to unless you had taken that time to pull on that root and get to the bottom of it. And there's so many different applications for this, but a lot of times the first reason that you give for the situation that you're in isn't the actual root, it's a symptom of the root. And so the 5 whys is a really good way of saying, well, why? Why? Dive deeper, dive deeper, dive deeper. And now you're getting to the root of something. You can think about any kid who's sitting in the backseat of the car and mom and dad are like, all right, well, we got to go to the store. Well, why? And then you're like, well, we got to get groceries. Well, why? And then all of a sudden they ask this deep existential question. And you're like, wow, that's a good question. Why? And so the 5 whys is a really powerful reflection tool. And then this one is really something that I developed as an athlete, but I think anyone can use it. And the reason why I say anyone can use it is because pain is a motivator. And this is one that I call the dark side trampoline. And if you've ever heard of the saying hitting rock bottom, I definitely don't think that you need to hit rock bottom to get where you want to get or to get out of a situation that you're not happy with. But what you can do is create this artificial trampoline that you then use to propel yourself out of the situation that you're in. So I'll give a little bit of context, a little bit of way and how you use this. A lot of times we have something that we really want, different habits, different environments, different things are keeping us from it. And the pain that we are in, the suffering that we are in this current situation, when it gets really bad, then we want to do something about it. But then the next day passes, or we sleep on it, or we, have some cognitive dissonance and say, oh, it's not that bad. Like I don't really need to go to the gym. And so you lose a lot of that initial motivation, that trampoline that might get you out of that situation. Whereas if you can actually take some time to feel the pain, and this is something that a lot of people don't want to do, remind yourself like, wow, I was really not happy when I was in this situation. This could be a job that you really, really, really don't like. Monday rolls around, you have the weekend to kind of chill, and then you're like, wow, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I don't you talk yourself out of it. But when you go back and revisit that pain, revisit that frustration, revisit that emotion, and really the dark side of what so many people say, it's like, oh, just be happy, just be fluffy. Everything's great, everything's amazing. A lot of times it's not. And until you get to a point to where it is so frustrating that you're then going to do something about it, you don't really do anything about it. So the more that you can create these artificial trampolines and remind yourself, or even psych yourself out. I mean, I remember when there was times when I was training for my marathon, I would go, all right, I got to do this 11-mile run. And I'd start to slow down. And I'd start to be like, it's fine. Like if I come in 20 minutes later than I was really working towards. And then it's like, oh no. If you don't do what you know that you need to do, your friends are going to be like, oh man, like I created these situations where I said like my friends are going to be disappointed, or my family's going to be disappointed, or I'm going to let myself down. And it may or may not be true, but it motivated me to be like, oh no, I don't want that feeling. That's something I definitely don't want. So I'm going to move out of that situation because that's an uncomfortable feeling. So it becomes this little dark side trampoline. And this is why I say you don't need to hit rock bottom or get into a really bad situation if you know how to strategically create negative emotions and use them as reminders as to why it is that you're working out of something. So there's a bunch of different ones that you can dive into on reflection. I've got a 10 Steps to Mindfulness Mastery download that you can get on my website, www.downdogathletics.com. You can also find this. I think you actually might need to go to the website. I had it on my social media, but I don't anymore. So there's more reflection ones that you can do. You can also catch a lot of these on my YouTube channel as well. That's going to be linked via social media and on the website as well. But now we're going to shift to grounding. And this is one that I really love. And the visualization that I'll give you right now, if you can just close your eyes, maybe you're driving, maybe you are walking. Just close your eyes for a second. Don't get hit by a car. Don't run into a car. But just picture a tree. And a tree that has roots that grow really, really, really deep is going to be a strong tree. What I mean by this is when we have ourselves grounded in the present moment, grounded in our truth, our core values, who we know we are, what we know we're capable of, it's going to be really, really hard to blow us over. Versus if you picture a tree that has roots that go a couple inches deep, on the outside it might look really strong. It might have a big, thick trunk. It might have lots of branches, tons of leaves. But when the winds blow, maybe a hurricane comes, tornado comes, let's say it rains really hard, that tree's going to blow over. And that's how we are as people. When we are not in the present moment, when we are not self-aware, when we don't know what we really stand for, our roots aren't really deep. So we're not really grounded in that present moment. And so the more that you can practice things within this bucket, the more confident you're going to be in yourself, in your situation, and in the choices that you're going to make. So I'll do the first one, mantra. This is going to be something that you can repeat to yourself in a meditation. So maybe, again, you're listening to music, you're sitting down, and you're just repeating this to yourself. And I'll give you an example for one, again, running this race. I did the impossible yesterday. 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 And you repeat that to yourself. And you remind yourself of, and this is kind of similar, tied to that evidence, but it brings you in that present moment because you're in the present moment saying this. There's so much evidence that in the past, you could do a new PR because yesterday you were supposed to run 11 miles. Today you're supposed to run 13.1. Or maybe not yesterday, but relative to where you were, there was things that were impossible. You've now done them, and now you're going on and doing something that is more possible, or something that you may not believe is possible, but you did the impossible yesterday, so the possible or the impossible must actually be possible. I'm going to bring that all around. The things that you don't think you can do. You did those things yesterday, right? So I did the impossible yesterday, and it can be a lot of different mantras. It can be affirmations. It can be something that you just constantly say and bring yourself back into The present moment was something that you were saying in the here and now. And so if you're saying this affirmation like, I am a really good teacher, I am a really good coach, I'm a really good athlete, these are all things that you are now saying about yourself, and you're getting rooted and more deeply entrenched in the who you are and grounded. That's why I call it grounding, in the here and now. A couple others that I really believe in is one, going to be a gratitude practice, because a gratitude practice is looking for the reasons that you should be super pumped in the here and now, right? One of my good friends, they have a saying at their company, best day ever. And I love this, and I always mention it in this because right now is the best day ever, because yesterday's past, tomorrow's not guaranteed. What other option do you have right now than for today to be the best day ever? And so when we're practicing gratitude, it's not necessarily saying, oh, all these things are great, even though objectively looking at them, I know that they're not. It's being able to say, even if my car breaks down, or even if something bad happens, there's going to be some good in this, or there's going to be some lesson for me to learn, right? And when we train our brains to look for opportunity, for reasons why things are good, then we're going to find more of that. Because if we also, on the flip side, train our brain for why things suck, why things are negative, why we should complain, if we complain about something over and over and over, we're just bringing more and more of that into our lives, because our brain's now looking for something that we have now said out loud that exists. So if we complain in Seattle that it always rains, well, next time it rains, we're going to be super aware of that, and we're going to complain more and more and more. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I know it does rain a lot in Seattle, but you could also say, I love the rain. It allows me to focus more on work, because I don't need to go outside and go to a happy hour or something like that. So there's always going to be good things in it. So that gratitude is going to bring you into that present moment, and not be thinking like, oh, in the past, in the future. It's like, what do I got right now? What do I have right now? That's going to ground you in that here and now. And then last but not least, this one is, I think, the most powerful, because it affects you physically. It's also going to affect you mentally, but it's going to be breath. And it's going to be able to, it's going to be able to alter the state that you're in at any time. I have a younger athlete, high school player, work with, and he used this during one of his games. We talk about breath and how when he would get super worked up, super nervous about to go into the game as a pitcher, right? Now he's going onto the mound, anxious, sweaty, nervous, mind running a million miles an hour. But what we worked on was saying, hey, when it comes that time when you get spinning a million miles an hour, use your breath, and here's why. When you exhale, that's going to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's going to downregulate your heartbeat. That is going to get you into a state to be more clear and focused, versus on the flip side is the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. So fight or flight is putting your brain in a situation to where you are using the reptilian, the mammalian parts of your brain and going, oh, there's a threat, I need to go, like, I'm super nervous, I'm super agitated, I need to million miles an hour. Versus when you use the parasympathetic, you're able to use more of the prefrontal cortex, use the executive, rational part of your brain, and make decisions that you normally would want to make. And then using the breath to bring you back in, how maybe you would apply this. If you notice yourself at work really stressed out, it could simply be 2 seconds in, 3 seconds out. 2 seconds in, 3 seconds out. And I always say breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Breathing in through the nose is going to get more oxygen to the lungs. You have a vasodilator. It's going to essentially help bring you up. And then with that exhale, it's going to slow you down. So many times when we get really stressed, if you notice, it's short inhales. I wish you guys could see that so it didn't just sound weird, but short inhales, right? If someone's hyperventilating, they're just breathing in, and it's that exhale out, right? Someone says take a deep breath in. You also got to remember, take that deep breath out, let the shoulders come down. And so whether you're using 2 seconds in, 3 seconds out, I actually really like 4-6. That's going to be a 10-second breathing ratio. And so 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. When you have when you have a longer exhale than inhale, you're going to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system more. And in under 90 seconds, you can completely change your state to being super panicked, super nervous, super agitated, to then being relaxed. And it's because that 6 seconds out, 4 seconds in, that's a 10-second cycle. You do that 9 times, that's now going to bring you down into a much more relaxed state. So I'd try that today. Next time you notice yourself getting stressed or in traffic or some situation where you're not grounded, you're agitated, and maybe you're nervous, anxious about something, or you're super bummed and looking in the past, bring yourself into that present moment with your breath. It's always in the present moment. You can't breathe in the past. You can't breathe in the future. Cool. So now we got visualization. And I'm going to give you one for the running example, and then I'll give you two more. So visualization obviously is looking into the future and visualizing success. And when you visualize success for this run, for example, right, so I'm visualizing myself being successful, hitting my goal in my marathon. I'm not just visualizing a time on my phone or a time on my watch. I'm visualizing how it's going to feel in every single sense. What is it going to smell like with the trees and the birds and the sweat? What is it going to sound like when I cross the last road and there's cars and bikes and people and my friends cheering me on? What is it going to feel like in my legs? I can tell you it doesn't feel good. You probably know this. What is it going to feel like in my legs and in my knees and in my feet when I hit that last mile, that 26, and then I got 1/10 of a mile left to go? What is that going to feel like? What is it going to, what is it going to look like? Like, am I looking down at my feet? Am I looking forward? Am I looking at my watch for that last tick of the 0.01? And as you use all of your senses, then you're able to make this more real, because you're now bringing every single part of your being into that future moment. And when you can feel it and smell it and see it and maybe taste it's one I can remember. You might be tasting the goo that you had to give you that last little bit of energy, or tasting the sweat, or maybe your mouth's super dry and all you can taste is the dry mouth. But all you're doing is mentally creating the situation to where this future scenario is very, very real. And when you can sense success and not just visualize success, you basically blast yourself into the future, establish that as something that is very real. And then when you come back into the present moment, you're like, wow, that was very real. If you've ever had like a dream and you're like, wow, that dream was so real, or, some situation where you're just able to say, like, I can see it happening. That's what's happening. And now you're going to be so much more propelled towards that vision, towards that goal, because you've already been there. You've already been there with every single sense, every single part of your being. So sensing success, obviously you don't need to just do this with a race, but if it's 30 pounds, if it's a promotion, if it's a relationship, and this is why I say these things can all be used in health and fitness and nutrition, but there's also principles to life, and these are some of the things that are at the core foundation of these principles, that when you apply, it makes whatever hard thing that you're trying to do just a little bit easier, a little bit more likely to happen. This next one, if you listen to my podcast with Akshal Patel, can't remember the number, might have been around in the 40s, but he's a neurosurgeon in Seattle. And I thought this one was brilliant. He talked about planning for failure. And so I call this one planning for contingencies, which basically just means not assuming that everything's going to go perfect. So when he's planning for failure, he's saying, all right, if I run into something as I'm doing surgery on a brain, how am I going to respond to that? So a lot of times we plan for best case scenario. Well, what happens if it rains and we're left at the beach without an umbrella, or left in a situation where, we didn't plan for this contingency? And you can utilize this also in how you're going to react emotionally. If you say, all right, I'm going to go, to the Mariners game, or I'm going to go to some sort of event, and it's just going to go perfect. Well, what if you plan for how you're going to respond when someone says something that really pisses you off or triggers you? And then rather than when that moment happens, because it's going to happen, whether it's this time, next week, next month, you've now visualized yourself slowing down, using your breath, and then responding rather than reacting. Right? I'm not going to say I'm a relationship coach or anything by any means, but one of the things I've worked on with myself and with my partner is visualizing how I'm going to respond in a situation where maybe she doesn't do the dishes. She's really good at doing the dishes. I'm just using this example. I come around the corner, dishes aren't done. I visualize myself being like, I wish the dishes were done, but maybe there's a reason why she wasn't able to get to them, rather than just coming around and be like, why aren't the dishes done? Super cheesy example, but super applicable to any relationship you have. To one last really quick one. What happens when you step on the scale or try and hit a PR on a squat and you don't hit what you wanted to hit? the number isn't what you wanted. Are you going to then lose your mind, unwind, and get out of control and doubt yourself? Or are you going to visualize how you're going to respond when that doesn't go your way? It's no factor, not a big deal, because I'm committed to the process and I'm visualizing myself pushing beyond any obstacle that I run into. Last one, my favorite one, because I am actually using this I'm using this in my own career, and it's really cool to see it. I've wanted to move to San Diego for a really long time. So anytime I go on like a retreat or I'm working with a coach, some of the things I'll do is plan out, what does my perfect day look like? What time do I wake up? Where do I wake up? When do I have my cup of coffee? When do I sign on? What's the kind of work that I'm doing? What time do I go work out? Where am I going for lunch? Who am I spending my time with? What am I doing in the evening? Visualizing your perfect day, getting really clear on what that looks like. Now you have something to work towards. Versus if you have no idea what you want your life to look like in 5 years, how is that ever supposed to happen? You say maybe you want more success, but what does that success look like on a daily basis? Until you know what that looks like, you have nothing you need to work towards. And coming back to the sensing success, if I can visualize my perfect day, what my sheets feel like, what clothes I'm wearing, now that becomes very, very real. And that's something that you can then work towards. And so I say I've been working on this in my life because 2 years ago, I did a journaling prompt where it was visualize your perfect day. Write it out hour by hour, day by day. And within 6 months, a ton of them had already happened. And these were like very specific ones. Like I'm podcasting with this person. I'm traveling to this country. I'm doing this partnership with this company that I hadn't been working with yet. And the last one of that was moving to San Diego. And I'm now starting to lay the foundation of like the exact date and where we're going to move to, because it's going to happen. And this isn't to say that if you visualize, being a billionaire, you'll be a billionaire. Obviously, if you've been listening to this podcast that whole time, hopefully that's not what you're taking away. But if you can see it happening, you're much more likely to believe it. And if you believe it, you're much more likely to work towards it. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up in a bow. Reflection, grounding, visualization. You can check this out on downdogathletics.com. I'm going to have a blog written for this as well, just so you can kind of see the visual word. Going to get a PDF done for this event. So 5/6 Virtual Wellness Weekend Fundraiser with Ula and us. It's on 5/6. I believe the meditation's at 5:30, or at least when we're starting. So we can really dive into this in workshop. You can ask questions. But I'd have you consider just doing one of these today. Doesn't have to be all of it. When I came back from my vacation 2 days ago, I laid down for 20 minutes, meditated, and just went through all of this, reflecting. How am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? What am I grateful for? And just move through reflection into grounding, do a little bit of breath work, and then I visualize myself being successful for the next week. And it sent me right. Went from vacation mode to super anxious about being behind on work to now being dialed in, locked in. It works, and it'll work for you. So if you have any questions, be sure to reach out. Paul_Klingen on social media. You can go to downdogathletics.com and contact us or apply for coaching, training and nutrition coaching, and really work on the mindfulness and lifestyle parts of that as well. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast, and I'll catch you guys next Tuesday, episode 99 with Joe Mike Paul, the man with 3 first names. It's going to be a good time. We'll talk about a lot of nutrition, mindset, mental stuff as well. So really fun, and I'll catch you guys Tuesday for that episode. Other than that, have an amazing day, and I'll see you soon on the Mindful Muscle Podcast.